Good evening.
It is I, Count Joshua.
I had a bit planned with like fangs and a cape, but it turns out that stuff is really hard to find last minute in the middle of the summer. Anyway, horror has its own unique set of tropes that they are apparently contractually obligated to follow. And in honor of the spookliest of seasons, we'll be tackling 4 of these tropes in random, chaotic order. But Josh, isn't it August? Yes, I'm aware. But it's Halloween every day for me as soon as the Easter Bunny goes home. So, here we are. Do not call this spooky chicks and scary flicks.
For the last time, anything you put on that prompter, Burgundy will read.
First up, we have spooky monster women. These are the women who, because they're girls and they have cooties, they develop superpowers. Take Jennifer's Body, for instance. Megan Fox is possessed by a succubus demon, which gives her the powers of extra sexiness and pointy teeth.
Are you scared?
I'm scare-roused.
So she's scary, but guys still feel the need to risk it for the biscuit. The guys in this story are punished, or rather, executed and consumed, for being attracted to such a demonic harlot. Her body and her wiles are evil, and the male gaze must remain fixed on the Lord, lest the devil eat your insides in an active construction site. Another example of the female body being evil, gross, and the source of all sin is the movie Carrie. Man, a lot of these are just straight up named after women, aren't they? Not a great look. In the 2013 retelling of King's classic Carrie, we are given the answer to the question, what would She's All That have been like if Freddie Prinze Jr. had asked Jean Grey to prom? The answer is, quite predictably, insane carnage. The lead up to this totally justified mass murder is an unnatural, abominable occurrence. A girl gets her period for the first time. Naturally, the other girls in the school film themselves bullying her in the locker room and post the video to social media. You'd think that this video of an unclothed minor being assaulted and harassed would violate Facebook's terms and conditions and possibly a couple of actual laws, but apparently Meta are too busy facilitating actual genocide and misinformation campaigns to worry about something so trivial. Eventually, the public humiliation goes too far. At prom, after being doused with pig's blood, Carrie unleashes the full extent of her wrath, and the evil high school girls get what's coming to them. Here, we have a few things in play. We have our primary trope of the supernatural monster who is unable to control themselves and must be feared in Carrie herself. But the story is also asking us to root for the brutalization of 15-year-old girls. It's incredibly satisfying to see this righteous justice play out, but it's hard to ignore the coding in the message. And I really don't think I can talk about Carrie without mentioning her abusive mother.
Go to your closet and pray for forgiveness. No! You pray!
In every iteration of the character, she is a hyper-religious zealot who sees Carrie's every breath as an act of sin. I mean, say what you want about the horrible Dursleys, but at least when Harry Potter was shoved in a closet, he wasn't forced to pray for forgiveness until he collapsed. Here again, we have a case where Carrie definitely commits a Class X felony, but most of us would be willing to let her off with a warning given the circumstances. Look, I don't like the things that I think any more than you do, but it was either start a YouTube channel or go to therapy. And if you still need proof of the woman body scary trope, I would direct your tired eyes towards the 2007 horror comedy Teeth, wherein an upright Christian girl uses her toothy hoo-ha to chop off the kibbles and bits of no less than 3 creepazoid boys and 4 of her sleazy gyno's fingers. Once again, as in the case with Carrie, we are supposed to be happy when these awful creatures are separated from their helmet-headed crotch rockets, and at the same time, the primary driving force of the film is the horrors that lie within a woman's no-no zones. Be careful, boys. If you mess around with the wrong girl, she could bite your manhood off with her special Happy Time Fun Box. You know, the fact that YouTube flags certain words as inappropriate has made this whole experience way more fun and infinitely more gross. Never thought I'd be using the term toothy hoo-ha in a professional setting, but here we are! But Hollywood would like to point out that a woman doesn't need superpowers to be a monster. For every fire starter, we have the roommate. The natural balance between fear and repression has led film to personify women as dangerous and violent in all of their forms. You see, it's not misogyny, it's representation. Brought to us by 90s royalty Rob Reiner, the movie Misery tells the story of a woman who loves a book series so much she's willing to kidnap and torture the author. This is because she's a woman, not because the word fan is short for fanatic. because fandoms are normally just so calm and reasonable. Clearly, this violence and fanaticism is caused by her volatile womanhood. Kathy Bates' out-of-control hormones convince her to kidnap James Caan, the author of the popular Misery book series. She shows herself to be tremendously unstable, and the idea of the series ending sends her into a frenzy. James Caan is violently coerced into writing a new adventure for Misery, dictated by Kathy herself. Essentially, she strong-arms the author into penning 300 pages of forcibly sanctioned fanfiction. Eat your heart out, my immortal. Or, I guess 50 Shades would have been more timely call-out. I don't know. I do have a bone to pick with how E.L. James cast 50 Shades of Side-Eye on the entire fanfiction community, though. Fanfic has such a rich history, and so many good writers have come out of fanfic. But this bitch writes one trilogy of Twilight fanfiction novels about a manipulative rich boy. I really don't have any other jokes here, though, because despite the crazy woman is crazy thing, Misery is actually a solid thriller. It's not scary, per se, but it is quite disturbing. Kathy Bates just scares me in general. Please don't hurt me, Joe Bennett. I swear I didn't mean it. I did it for the lulz.
Lulz.
Hey you. Yeah, you watching the video. Don't act like you don't know who I'm talking to. It's literally just us right now. You know what you should be doing? Hitting that subscribe button. Do it. Do it now. Do it, or I'm gonna take my fist. Subscribe. Moving right along to our next trope. The traumatized survivor is actually several tropes stacked on top of one another in a trench coat, attempting to take out a bank loan so they can rebuild their clubhouse. Under this banner, we have our designated virgin archetypes, the badass loner, and our general scream queens. Now this trope has always been around, but it really picked up steam in the 70s and 80s with the rise of the slasher horror. Movies like Prom Night, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Friday the 13th all solidified the idea that only one person can survive a killer's wrath. But in order to do so, they're gonna need a healthy dose of PTSD. Look at Laurie in the Halloween franchise, or Sydney in Scream. These girls watch their friends die one by one, have at least one face-to-face run-in with the murderer per movie, and barely escape with their lives every time. For as badass as they are, these interactions with their franchise killers are known to inflict massive mental and emotional trauma on them. And yet, even with this clearly fleshed out in front of us, we press right on to get back to the blood and gore. Before we even reach the midway point of the first Scream film, Sydney is so shooketh that she can't even handle the thought of being alone in her own home. She is trembling at the unseen horrors that she imagines are right around the corner. She is justifiably scared because people are trying to kill her. But to extrapolate out, in between films, she's relatively safe. And yet we are shown that she is going to be obsessively checking her locks and having nightmares and flashbacks for the rest of her life. If we shift over to the Friday the 13th films, poor Alice is fucked in the head. At the end of the first movie, she has defeated Mrs. Voorhees and is sitting in a rowboat in the middle of the lake, trying to pull herself together, when suddenly, the manifestation of her trauma leaps out of the water and pulls her under. It's been hotly debated whether this is the real Jason here, or if this is just Alice's imagination manifesting after an exhausting night of running for her life. For our purposes, let's assume that's not the real Jason. She's just so messed up by what happened to her that she imagines being pulled under the waves by a long-dead boy. This is a recurring theme with the first 4 films in the franchise. The lone survivor is never truly free from their night of terror, as it is indicated that they suffer from PTSD practically immediately. Which makes sense. I went out with my friends for a night of fun, but instead saw them all get brutally murdered in increasingly inconvenient ways. I'd probably be seeing things that weren't there too. These characters make for easy audience inserts, but they should also make the audience feel even more uneasy about the stories they're consuming. The traumatized survivor is always only a step ahead of certain death. They are doomed to perpetually watch their friends die in front of them, both in real life and in the recurring nightmares they will certainly be having. The final stereotypical archetype I'd like to examine here is the, oh no, my kid's the Antichrist. We've been getting these movies since the invention of modern cinema. Don't get me wrong though, some of these movies are great. Films like The Exorcist are downright classics, not just of the horror genre, but of film in general. And in recent years, we've seen some interesting genre blending with films like Brightburn, which mixes the my sweet summer child is literally the biblical Satan with a superhero origin story. Specifically, it asks, what if Ma and Pa Kent raised Kryptonian Damien? But we're not here to talk about these devil children. On to Mummy Dearest. Damien's mom in The Omen is a bit more oblivious to the evil that surrounds her than most of the others, despite possibly being the one who has the most evidence towards her child's true nature. Her car is attacked by monkeys at the zoo, her babysitters are killing themselves in honor of her son, clergy members are dying left, right, and center whenever they interact with the family, and yet this woman does not seem to have a clue that her sweet Damien is actually a family-sized box of oops all evil berries. By contrast, in Rosemary's Baby, the titular Rosemary is clued in from the get-go that shit is amiss.
But one thing is for sure, they have a coven and they want my baby.
Rosemary is impregnated by a satanic cult, and boy does she know it right away. During her entire pregnancy, she wants to visit her regular doctor and wants to get to the bottom of this weird stuff. Over the course of the film, she uncovers the mystery, gets one of her friends killed, and eventually, albeit begrudgingly, accepts her role as the mother of Satan's firstborn son. The Exorcist exhibits a very different mother-demon-daughter relationship. Reagan's mom is worried about her. She takes her to the doctor and does all the normal loving parent stuff you're supposed to do when your child first starts showing symptoms of deviliosis. But when modern medicine fails her, Mama calls in the pros. And when the priests arrive, the princes of the power of the air who control our dearest Reagan decide it's time to take their game to the big leagues. Shout out to all my former Bible camp kids who understood that word salad sentence. Unlike Rosemary, who knows her baby is the child of evil and struggles with whether she should nurture or abandon it, Reagan's mom accepts that the powers that are controlling her daughter are not indicative of any inherent evil within her. She's actually rather admirable, as I don't know too many parents who could watch their teenage daughter openly piss right on the floor and simply brush it off as Pazuzu's up to his old tricks again. Mommy's off to grab the mop, you go back to bed. Reagan's mom moves her across the country to build a better life for her. And when her child is possessed by an ancient Sumerian demigod demon dude, she jumps right into action. Meanwhile, Damien's mom is still sitting in her car trying to figure out a way to escape all those damn monkeys. The gas pedal's on the right, Kathy. Just fucking drive away. So there you have it, kids. 4 examples of how women are portrayed in horror films, all neatly wrapped up in a list-like format that the internet tells me your brain craves like Girl Scout cookies. Hop on down to the comment section below and tell me about the many, many tropes that I absolutely refuse to acknowledge in this video. Then, do all the YouTube stuff with the buttons and the clicking, and make sure you check out the rest of our catalog. Some of that is being recommended to you right now, so click on it. I'm gonna come to your house and date your mom. Class dismissed.